This is page 55 in our notes. Today my colors are blue and black. This is standard EE6. Solving addition and subtraction algebraic equations. Addition and subtraction. These are algebraic equations. If you remember, algebraic mean they have to have variables, and equations mean they have an equal sign. And today we're going to be dealing with add and subtract. So we're solving adding and subtracting algebraic equations. I'm going to write the equation using black, and then I'm going to change it using blue. So the best way to practice this is just to show you what this means to solve. First example I have is x plus 7 equals 15. So you want to write the problem first. The next thing I like to do is the left side of your equation has to equal the right side of your equation. So I like to draw a line on the equal sign so that you can kind of see what you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to the other in order to keep it balanced. Whenever you're trying to solve for x, like you're trying to solve for a variable, you have to get rid of everything on the same side of it. So on the left side, I have x plus 7. So in order to get x by itself, which is ultimately what I want to do, I have to get rid of a plus 7. How do I get rid of a plus 7? Well, you actually do the opposite or the inverse operation, which is subtract 7. So if I have a plus 7 and I subtract 7, then I'm going to have 0. This is going to cancel out, which is good. I want to get rid of it so that I have x by itself. So x is all I have, which is great. My equal sign is still here on this. If you subtract 7 on the left, you have to subtract 7 on the right. 15 minus 7, and you get x is going to equal 8. How can I check to make sure this is true? You're going to put 8 in here for x, and you're going to see if this is true. You're going to put 8 right here for x, and then you're going to add 7, and does that equal 15? And yes, it does. That is true. Some people can see it because it's pretty basic, but when we get into bigger numbers and different algebraic equations, it's important to know you solve by doing the opposite. So we'll do another example. The next example I'm going to write in black, and then I'm going to change the problem in blue. So this example says 4 plus x equals 34. And if you remember, the first thing I said is I like to draw a line down the equal sign. Whatever's on the left side of this problem, I have to make sure it equals what's on the right. Some people can see 4 plus what would this have to be so that it equals 34. So over here I had a plus 7, which made it easy to know that the opposite of plus 7 is subtract 7. See, I have a plus x, so it's kind of different here. If it were me, I would rewrite this and switch this around. Instead of 4 plus x, I would just say x plus 4. It's the same thing. So I would rewrite this so that you have x plus 4 equals 34. So how do I get x by itself? I've got to get rid of a plus 4. So I get rid of a plus 4 by doing the opposite, which is actually subtracting 4. If I subtract 4 on this side, it cancels out 4, which is great. That leaves me x by itself, which is what I want. If I subtract 4 on the left, I also have to subtract 4 on the right. 34 minus 4 is 30. If x equals 30, does that make this true? Well, you could check by putting in 30 back up to the original problem. 4 plus 30 instead of x, does that equal 34? Yes, it does. It works. So if you check your answers, you should never miss one here. What's important to know with solving algebraic equations? We call it the inverse operation, so put a star in your notes. Inverse operation, which basically means to do the opposite of whatever sign you see. Inverse operation means to do the opposite of the sign you see. So in order to get rid of a plus 7 up here, we subtracted 7. In order to get rid of a plus 4, we subtract 4. It's the opposite sign. So you could call it opposite sign. So the opposite sign, like if you have a plus, the opposite sign would be a minus. They are going to cancel each other out. And that's good that they cancel each other out because you're trying to solve for the variable. In this case, we were solving for x. You want to get x by itself. So they cancel each other out. So the best thing I know to do with this is just to keep practicing problems with algebraic equations. So the next one I have, I'm going to write it in black and then I'll change the problem. I'm going to skip a line here. That gives me a line to write y minus 15 equals 10. So we're trying to solve for y, figure out what y would be. So I draw a line down the equal sign. I need to get y by itself. So right now on the same side with it, I have a minus 15. How would I get rid of a minus 15? I do the opposite of subtracting, which is adding 15, which gets me to 0. If I'm at negative 15 and then I add 15, I get to 0, so that cancels out, which is good. We want y by itself. Okay, if I add 15 to the left side of the equation, then I also have to add 15 to the right side. That's how we keep the equation balanced, and that would give me 25 for y. So if I plug in 25 for y, does this make sense? Well, let's check it. 25 for y, subtract 15, does that give me 10? Yes, it does. So if you check, you should never miss one of these problems. Let's do another one, another example. I'll write it in black and we'll change it with our blue color. We have a minus 30 equals 50. So you're trying to solve for a, so we draw a line down the equal sign. To get a by itself, I have to get rid of a minus 30. I do that by doing the opposite, which is add 30, and that's going to cancel it out, which is good. If I add 30 to the left, and then I have to add 30 to the right to keep it balanced, 50 plus 30, that's going to equal 80 for a. And if I check that, and I put in 80 for a, does this work? 80 minus 30, that equals 50. So you can check that. So you got to get the variable by itself. So we've got a couple stars here I want to put in our notes. These were the variables were first, and then I had a minus a number, so we had to add the number. Pretty soon you're going to see a negative variable, and so I want to put a couple stars here. A negative variable. You don't want a negative variable. And what I mean by that is these were y minus 15, but if it was like 15 minus y, you see a minus y, that would be a negative variable. So how do I get rid of a negative variable? We're going to keep it positive by adding the variable to the other side. So I want you to write, keep the variable, we'll move this up a little bit, positive. You're going to keep the variable positive by adding it to the other side. What do I mean the other side? It would be the other side of the equation. So I'm going to put some more stars here. This is important to know. I would like you to repeat that after me. If you have a negative variable, you're going to keep the variable positive by adding it to the other side. So an example of that, if I see a negative a, like a negative variable, I'm going to keep it positive by adding an a, which will cancel it out on one side, but then we're going to add a to the other side. So we're going to have a positive variable. So this is what's going to, you're going to see a negative variable, and you're going to add it to cancel it to one side, then you're going to add it to the other side to keep it positive. So again, I'm going to write an example. I'm going to skip a line and then come down. And my example is going to be 8 minus a equals 2. And some people can see, I know what a needs to be to make this true, but I want to solve this. We're going to draw a line down the equal sign. Do you see how I have a negative a? I don't want a negative a. If this was addition, we would just switch this around. You know, 8 plus a is the same thing as a plus 8, but this is not addition. This is a negative. You can't just switch these two around. So in order to keep this variable positive, we're going to add a first. So you're like, okay, so we cancel it out, which is okay. We don't want a negative variable. Then we're going to add a to the other side. And if you remember 2 plus a, this is the one I said you could rewrite so that you have a plus 2. I would highly recommend rewriting it because over here we have 8, we have our equal sign, and now over here we have a plus 2. The reason why I like the plus 2, because in order to do the opposite of adding, we got to get rid of the 2 so that we can get a by itself. So now in order to get rid of a plus 2, we're going to subtract 2, and that cancels out. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other, and you subtract 2 over here. So 8 minus 2 is 6 equals, and we got a by itself, which is what we wanted. And we wanted a to be a positive. So it would be 6. So to go back and check this problem, we had to do 2 steps. We added a to this side to keep it positive, and then we ended up having to subtract 2 to this side. So this was kind of like 2 steps you had to do. If a equals 6, does this make this true? The original problem was 8 minus a, but let's put a 6 in there, and that equals 2. So that's how you could check. We're going to do another example like that where I give you a negative variable because I think that's important that you practice. The next example, I'm going to give you 8.3 minus y equals 2.7. So this one's not as easy to just see, like, what would my y equal. So I'm going to put a line down the equal sign. I see a negative variable. We don't want that. We keep it positive by adding it to the other side. So we're going to add the y to the other side. Cancels on the left side of our equation. Now we add it here. Remember, I want you to rewrite this so it looks like y plus 2.7 on the right, and on the left we just have 8.3. So this is all on the same line here. 8.3 equals y plus 2.7. We rewrite it like this. We want to get y by itself. So how do I get rid of a plus 2.7? I do the opposite by subtracting 2.7. That's going to cancel that out. And when I subtract 2.7 over here, let's see, I got y on the right, which is good. I want it by itself. You may have to borrow. That's 13 minus 7 gives you 6. 7 minus 2 is 5.6 is going to equal y. So if I check this, does the 8.3 that I originally had, if I subtract instead of y, I put 5.6, does that give me 2.7? And yes, it does. And you can check that with a calculator. So when you have a negative variable, there's 2 extra steps. You have to add the variable to the other side, but then you have to subtract that number back over here so that you get the variable by itself. So your homework that you're going to do is a worksheet. I believe the worksheet is called 2-6. You are going to do all, and you can check with a calculator, but you would need to show your work. Make sure that you use your notes on number 9.